30, we'll call our morning workshop to order. We'll start with the department update from Public Works Director Jeff Hunter and Interim County Engineer Seth Scarola.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We want to jump down because I asked Casey to come in. We had the guy we just hired from Battleground in our road department, works on the west side, has resigned. It's too difficult for him to, with the interest rates going up, he can't afford to move here. So he's going to go back to Battleground. He didn't sell his house, so he's just go back to where he's at. So we'd like to fill that position with our interim, our seasonal person, and we would like to just offer them the job. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Casey. Sorry, Casey.
No, it's okay. So where the posting was so recent, typically you go into the pool from that job posting originally. The job posting was for white salmon, and it sounds like a person from Glenwood would be moving to the white salmon shop, opening a spot in Glenwood, which this current seasonal snowplow driver would be interested in. So the idea would be to just fill it from the seasonal person and not have to go out to post again, since it was just posted a little over a month ago, 2 months ago, so recent.
How many applications did we have?
Very few. We only had one guy, we had the seasonal guy who actually used to work for the state and didn't want to drive to white salmon. So he didn't apply, and we had the guy from Battleground. It's the only guy that was skilled.
I have no questions.
I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome.
Okay, so thank you. And we'll go to the consent agenda. We have an agreement for the camp host position. We've done this for quite a few years. Luckily, we still have a camp host. People at Trout Lake prefer if a camp host is there. We've tried it different ways, and this seems to be the best way that works for us.
Any questions on that? I had a bunch of questions on that when I was new, so wow, okay.
You're talking
Okay.
about Trout Lake, correct?
Yes, Trout Lake.
I know.
It went up this year, right? There was an increase?
No, the Dickey Quarry went up.
Okay.
Yeah, Dickey Quarry.
Dickey Quarry went up. Trout Lake did not. We'll probably have to look for somebody next year. I'm hoping not, but the couple's getting a little, anyway, they've been around for a while. Let me put it that way.
Have they mentioned to you that they might be last yearing it, or?
It's year to year now. I think Alan just turned 80. So it's a year to year type of thing, but the community loves him. He's been there for a long time, and he's been the best host we've had. So him and his wife. And we also have a local agency agreement to do work to design our fuel island. This is with AKS. That's number 3. Number 4 is the amendment to the agreement with Dickey Farms for the Bingen Quarry to extend another 10 years, to extend the life of also to get first right of refusal in case they sell. And an additional, the fees go up, which is not uncommon. It's based on the property values, and 10 years ago, the property values at that location were considerably less than what they are today.
Does that mean we got a good deal on the renegotiation one a week ago?
Yes, that one we got a good deal on. Yes, this one we got a good deal because the rock is worth quite a bit. Also, I wanted to make sure we hammered this in because we are in the process of working through an agreement with Skamania County to actually sell rock to Skamania County. We can be minorly involved in the rock selling business. We can sell to the state, and we could sell to other jurisdictions. And so we are broaching that to help pick up some of our cost.
Skamania doesn't have a quarry on the east side?
No. They don't have a quarry. Most counties don't. There's further to the east they do, but Skamania really doesn't have one, and they like our rock better than what they're getting. And our prices will probably be better than what they're paying. So yes, they're looking at buying our sanding rock, our chip seal rock, and maybe our top course and base course.
So what percent did it go up?
The quarry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna right around 30%, 35%.
And it's been 10 years.
About a little over 3.5% a year on inflation.
Yeah.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, we also have a notice to contractors for our bridge painter. And we did get that, and I'll let Seth talk a little bit more about that. Thank you for your help. They got that project out, but and with that, I'll turn it over to Seth. The other ones, I think they only concentrated on the one.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, but we don't.
So we'll do, yeah, so we'll talk about design end of it. So yeah, Rock Creek got approved finally. That got pushed through pretty quickly. The other two projects that we have funding approved on, I haven't heard much back. They still don't have our okay to go to ad yet, but all the other paperwork is in, just waiting their approval. The construction funding approval for the curve warning signs is in to them as well. So that's just starting the very beginning of the process. We'll see how long that one takes to get through. And our data collection project, which is going to be done by a consultant, has been approved for ad by WashDOT. And I did actually get, just before we got here, the DB determination, no DB goal on that. So we'll get that out to ad and get a consultant started on that one. Sundale, Old Highway 8, we're working on calculating right-of-way needs and getting that process started. And the others are pretty much the same as they have been. On the construction end of things, Courtney Road contractor completed repairs to soft spots and removed that asphalt that was in bad shape. And we're waiting a paving schedule. Fairgrounds water line's complete. Just a few connections left to make, service connections to make. And the annual striping project, we have a pre-construction next Monday, and hopefully if the weather allows, they get started next week as well. That's about all I got, Jeff.
Okay. I did want to make one, Seth and I sat in on Wasaki's conference calls with WashDOT. It's what legislature's proposing. Gordy and I were very much against what they're proposing, and Seth feels the same way. We get STP dollars, we get essentially so much per year. I think it's what, 5 something or 6 something a year now?
It's almost 7.
Almost 6 something per year STP dollars. WashDOT and the counties are actually, some of the counties were big on this, to say, well, why don't we trade those dollars in for state dollars? And then essentially like we do to the cities. And why don't we do that? And Gordy and I were against that because look, we still have to be CA status to do all the safety projects and everything else. And they're going to end up taking a cut. And it'll start at, now it's 90-10, but you give it a few years and it'll be 60-40 or something like that. So and also you can't borrow ahead like we do. So basically we would get one project a year, be $700,000, and WashDOT won't be clear on what regulations they would put on that money. It's state money. So overnight they could just say, well, you got to still have DBE goals and everything else. So then it doesn't really change. The only thing that changes is they get some of our gas money. The only reason I'm pitching that, if you guys hear about it, we're not going to volunteer to do it unless you direct us to. But we don't want to give up 10% to start with of our STP dollars with no cap on it. Legislature could change it. All WashDOT has to do is say, well, we can't do it for 10%. It's just too much. Now we need 20%. Now we're getting 80, and we still have to give money to the cities. So then what the county's seeing of that is it just keeps falling off further and further, unless the board wants to, at that point, say, okay, we're losing 20%, the cities, you get nothing. But that's not very popular. That would not be very popular for the board, or even at 90%. But we're not going to join the pilot program.
So more update from my seatmates on this. In one budget, I want to say it's the Senate budget, it's 90-10. In the House budget, we get 100%. So they're trying to finish off with 95, and it's only used on 20 of the smaller counties in the state that would be able to use it. And the sales pitch for those counties that want to is, without having to do the grant and the reporting on all the individual little things you have, if the state can use all the dollars on just an I-5 patching project, they have to do one little grant. The administrative wouldn't be that bad, and then we could use state dollars. I think the goal is to push it to zero, not
Right.
the other direction. But yes, I'm aware of the pilot project. It was one of the big pushes in Wasack. Because some of the counties, the smaller ones than us, it sounded like they weren't able to use those funds or facilitate those funds, or their number was so small it wasn't worth the hassle of doing the grant work. But anyway, that's where that came from.
And I do understand that. For us though, we're very successful. We have the infrastructure in place. And we were able to get other people's money because they couldn't come through. We do understand it for the small counties. We just don't want to be told we have to follow in. Because again, our fear is, I know that the Wasack wants it to go to zero. And I understand that. But like Gordy and I have said, and a lot of the people that have pushed for this haven't been there very long. And this, because this is coming, a lot of it's out of our group, the Wasackies coming to Wasack. But a lot of those people haven't been there that long, and they don't understand and haven't worked with WashDOT. WashDOT will get basically the same requirements with less money in the end. I could be wrong, but I would be shocked. Because we did state money. If you remember, we got the King money to do Courtney. We still had to fill out quarterly reports. We didn't have to have DBEs, but how long is that going to be before they make that a requirement statewide anyway? Because we still have to do all the archaeological stuff. It's basically a section 101 if we use state money, instead of 106. So again, we're just kind of giving you the heads up. Because we've been asked to, all the counties, when we sat down with, and they didn't say anything about that at the time. It was only the 20 smallest county.
No, they didn't say that. But the other part that gets
Definitely
us,
the 20 smallest.
Right. Yeah, they didn't tell us that. They told us it was all the counties. Okay.
the other part too that
It's
gets
a way
us
bigger
is,
number.
Wait, don't we
Yeah.
count as one of the 20 smallest?
Yes.
Yes.
We're not required to.
I think it was an opt-in.
Right.
Right now,
We
it's-
opted out because we can't borrow ahead.
Right.
So if we opted in, we'd get 700,000 and would mean we wouldn't do the Bickleton project this year. We would never do the big, because we can't do it in $700,000 pieces. And we told them that's the big issue for us, is we need to be able to buy big with that money to get a good price. If not, we get nothing for it. Again, it's great if you're going to put in a culvert or things like that. And smaller counties, I understand. Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked. We'll continue on. Okay, maintenance projects. East side's grading, still crack sealing and brimming sand. West side is brimming sand and placing gravel. They should be finishing up on High Prairie and Heartland. We're done with the tree removal from Trout Lake Park, and they're preparing for crack sealing. They're also doing some grading too. Upcoming facilities, we're putting together the financing for the HVAC, and I think I scheduled a workshop session with Lee on the 18th for that one. I'll come back to Lee on that. And so we'll be laying all that out, the different options. Courthouse HVACs, same thing, they're scheduled to be installed in May. We talked about that. Jailhouse roof replacement, the plans are pretty much final. There's a couple more things. We are scheduled to go out to add next week. We'll be packaged before the board next week. We go out to add for that project. Superior Court's the same thing, water line set covered. Fairgrounds events, we'll keep you up to speed on those. We have a 4-H archery event this weekend, and of course, Home and Garden coming up. Jail, juvenile remodel is coming along. Courthouse break room, we can take that off. That has been complete and open to the group. Fuel Island we talked about, and tower installation is actually, I thought I took care of this, but I didn't. It's actually in May now. It's been pushed back to May. Follow-up, Dallasport tour, still scheduled for next week on Wednesday. I didn't take artwork off. That's my thing. Title 12 standards, they go to the public this week. We're going to start sending them out. We've left some extras here with Alicia to hand out if somebody asks when they come in at 1 o'clock. We will send them to the community councils and other places and fire chiefs and try to get as many people as we can out. And then we have set up a website where they can send their comments into us. We're hoping to get a bunch of those, and then we will schedule a hearing, treat it like the 6 year, like we talked about. Cleanup and binging. They sent us a letter asking us if we would do what we've done for years. We usually, this is budgeted out of facilities. You know, we just make it work. It doesn't cost us that much. It's essentially 2 people. It depends. This year they're asking for 2 days. Sometimes they ask for 1, sometimes they ask for 2. This is actually Bidgen White Salmon Community Cleanup. We have an excavator there, a guy on the ground and a guy in the vehicle, and they compact everything.
So do they unload the trash on the ground and then excavator it into the container?
Yes. Yeah, they just
How
throw
do
it
they
in a
clean
big.
up the ground when it's done?
You know, I'm not really sure. I've never attended it, but we leave
I'm
that
thinking
on
the
them.
parking lot's gonna smell like fish heads, so.
Yeah, we leave that on them. Luckily, it's not one of our parking lots, so,
Oh, we might have our parking lot coming forward, so.
yeah.
You can go down and volunteer and
Thinking
help.
around that, right?
Yeah, I don't know how they clean it up. I assume maybe they pressure wash it or something.
Well, that was the weird thing, because in Lyle, they literally open the doors to the container, back the truck right up to it and go straight to there, so there's very little on the ground, and I always remembered White Salmon puts it right on the ground, and that was just weird to me.
Yeah, Klickitat does the same thing. You're right, the smaller communities do. But in White Salmon, they just, I guess they get too many people and too much big stuff, and they can't.
It'd be hard to do one at a time.
I think that, and then there's just so much pile, you know, somebody can't lug it all the way in there, so they get it half. I think they've had issues. I don't know.
Well, that's me, and if you have a room and you have lines of people and you're trying to back people up perpendicular to a trailer or something, could give you a long wait time, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think they treat it like, depending on which transfer station you go to, but where they just tell you dump it on the concrete, right? So yeah, that's how it works. But if the board's okay, we'll continue to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we talked about the employee, so I think that's all that is all, unless I forgot some, Seth.
I have a question on the Superior Court remodel. This is for the safety improvements. I'm assuming all of the safety improvements to go by that new law are all being inside the courtroom with their metal detectory stuff and nothing out in the courthouse that you've heard?
I have not heard anything about that. We will broach that issue. I mean, we talked a little bit about the safety. The grant could incorporate the safety, but you know, when the grant was originally written, it's for the actual aesthetics of the courtroom. I mean, we're going to add in safety because a big part of it is safety for separation for the staff, for their separation. There's also ADA accessibility things that.
We were just talking about that at Wasack, and some of the counties were limiting access to the courthouse where you can only get in one door. Everything else is exit only. Literally metal detectors and security at the front door. And I'm just sitting here, what is the expense to all of this?
Lot.
And so I was trying to get from there to where we are.
Yeah, we're not doing, because Grant County did that. I think it was Grant.
The pricing number are
One entryway.
Yeah.
Grant County actually made it a campus. So I think it was Grant County. One of the counties made it a campus because they had kind of the same situation we do, where we have the other doors. So basically they put a fence around the whole thing, and you come in through a guard shack, you get checked in that way. You could walk in or you could drive in.
Well, in some of them,
But somehow or another, you go through a metal detector. I don't know how it all works.
revamped their courthouse, and like for us, it would be taking auditor, treasurer, assessor off second floor, moving them down, putting other court-related probation, whatnot upstairs, and then they could have security to get to the second level. You know, that way the whole courthouse wasn't, it was an interesting discussion of cost that I'm curious why we haven't had those discussions, if that's coming as a mandatory.
I don't know that it's mandatory. We could have had the discussion years ago, but at that time it really was. I mean, we did to some degree a little bit because we made the move to move the commissioners over here and put juvenile over there. That's kind of based off of where Gordy and I came from, because a lot of the west side counties have gone to what they have, what they call they moved, like you said, they moved a lot of out of the true courthouse. They've either left the auditor, treasurer, and those people and everybody in, and then they, like juvenile, adult probation and all that, has gone to a different facility, and they call it like, I can't remember the wording for it, but it's a secure facility. It has one entryway in, and they have a metal detector, and the sheriff is there. And they usually post, they don't call them posse in some of those places. Over there, they call them, they were like reserves, and they man the metal detector. And so you walk in, like you go to Thurston County, law enforcement, or not law enforcement, but law and something building, and it's secure. And none of the other offices are in those. Yeah, none of the other offices are in there. It's just the sheriff, adult probation, juvenile, and all the courts.
Say we did do that when we did the remodel of the courthouse and we made all those more secure
Yes,
than they've ever been.
that's what we did during that. Because the courthouse wouldn't have been big enough to move everybody into. And then it's too big. This building would have had to been a lot bigger if we had moved everybody from there here and made that the courthouse your law enforcement type building. So yeah, Commissioner Anderson's correct. We decided at the point in time to do the security individually in each of the offices. And so they've all been upgraded.
So the only thing that's left is really the courtroom, and you always have someone standing outside of it anyways, which is what you have at the front door of those. The only difference
Yes.
is you don't have a metal detector.
And they have a wand.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah,
I
we
would still argue that we're still violating the law, but
we could get a metal detector, and we actually looked at that. The metal detector wasn't the cost.
manning it is the cost.
There you go.
No, where I'm saying that is lock boxes for firearms. You have to have lock boxes for firearms in that courthouse, and you can't claim the ones in the jail, but we've seemed to do that forever, and eventually somebody's gonna file and we're gonna lose.
We can add a project on. Again,
I broached it before and nobody was interested.
Okay,
So
well,
we can broach it again if we're
Yeah.
interested.
I could bring it up during.
By my reading of the statute and everybody else's definition of the statute, at least at Wasack, you have to have lock boxes if you're gonna make your county building, no fire.
Okay,
you can't tell them they have to put it in their car when they come in and talk to the auditor, because that's illegal. It has to be in a, so anyway, there needs to be easily access to lock boxes, which are kind of, if you went to the old skate rink and you put your shoes in and you put your quarter in, you take your key. Same thing they have in the jail when you walk in through security of the jail. There needs to be some kind of lock boxy system. Doesn't have to be huge.
Okay.
But at least then we're not violating that law.
So the ones that we
That's my
have in the
opinion.
jail don't count? You can't send somebody over to the jail to use?
They have to go
lockbox?
through security to get there. It's behind a locked door. You have to be buzzed in
Okay,
to the jail. Do you want random people buzzed into the jail to use a lockbox? I think that's a security problem. How do you know they're not bringing contraband in?
I mean, they're just going into that one room to put it in the lockbox, right? And where would the contraband go? They don't have access to the people.
I would disagree that that's not usable or functional, and how are you gonna notify the public of where that is or how that gets used?
I'd like to know how other counties have utilized it, where they.
I don't
put it.
know. We'll look into that to see what other counties have done. I know, like I said, Thurston, Lewis, their stuff is the Law and Justice Building is what they call it. Took me a while to remember that. They're both called that. And you can't come in with a firearm, period. Because you got to go through the metal.
Is that the courthouse?
No, that's not the courthouse. Now, I'll have to check on the courthouse and see what they do there. You're right, that's different. So I'll have to see what they do for that, for those facilities.
Because that's interpreted differently by each county's judge as well.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the judges, because it says egress and whatnot from the immediate building, they only deem that their courtroom, so they have security at their courtroom. You can't get in. You can walk on, say, on our second floor with a firearm and be fine. As
Right.
long as you're not loitering right outside the courtroom. And then other judges have it like us. Well, some judges have it, you can't have one on the second floor,
Right.
because that's where the court is. And then a few of them are like us that say the whole building. It's up to legal interpretation by the judge that you currently have.
So how does that work with the sign on the door out here?
Well, I would argue the sign on the door here, whoever put it up, has a strange interpretation of the law, but I've said that multiple times. Because this one, they put a sign on this door. They passed a law last year that you can't open carry at a protest or at a public meeting, public hearing. Well, that's in this room. That's not outside that door. Outside that door is not a public meeting. So I would argue that the entire building being off limits to open carry is somebody's varying opinion of the law than mine or the way it reads. But I don't know who posted that on the door, so.
That was been posted a while ago. I didn't have anything to do with that, not that I'm trying to, but I'll look into it.
Because to me, in reading that law, it's inside where the public
Okay.
meetings are.
Well, I'll do some checking and see.
Because they'll have to be placed somewhere if they're accessible to the public. You know, you have to think of safety of those lockers too.
Right, the safety, that we'll look at, so we'll follow up on this stuff. So we'll look at three things. One, if the sign, if that, we have to notify people. But
I'm fine with the notify being on this door.
Right,
But on
okay.
that door leads to the whole building being, and then when I take my jacket off in my office, I'm breaking the law of the sign,
Okay,
but not necessarily the law of the law.
yes, okay, so we'll follow up on that. We'll also follow up on what other counties do for their courthouses, because like I said, the other counties have
I don't want to
courthouses.
see people leaving their firearm in their car, or for instance, if I walk across the street to drop off my voter ballots and I'm going into the courthouse, what am I just gonna put it in my desk drawer? And I'd like to have it secured.
Do they have, can't they carry it in concealed though?
No firearms in the building in the courthouse over there.
Oh, because the courts.
That was that interpretation
Right.
there, which I'm not gonna get into the interpretation.
No, so that would be the problem. We'll have to check with somebody that has that, because like I said, the law enforcement thing, where they have law and justice buildings, they don't have the courts in those buildings.
That's a different thing.
In the
but with
courthouses.
Courts,
Right, where they have the courts and everybody together, so we'll have to
and
find.
that's the law that says you have to provide lockboxes.
Okay.
Is on the courthouse.
Okay, so we'll check in on that, see what they do. We'll also look at locations in our courthouse that are readily available and where we can put lock boxes. I kind of have an idea of a place to, that might work.
It is?
I gotta look at it closer, but I'm kind of thinking about the mailroom, what used to
Oh.
be the mailroom. And we could cut in something that actually,
Would
the
it
back.
face the hallway or face in the mailroom?
I'll face the hallway. Kind of like the mailbox thing we have, where you have, because you can't get into the back side of that.
Originally I was thinking by the vending machines, because it's kind of right there,
Uh-huh,
but I don't know that you're cutting into a wall there.
right, we'll have to look at that too. So we'll look at for a location where those could go, so they're readily available.
Easily seen people use.
Yes,
And I guess I just worry about them walking 50 feet down a hall to get to it and then getting in trouble with somebody, but.
yeah, we can also, we'll look and see where we can put them where they're the closest area to get in. The problem is we have 3
entrances, it's hard.
doors.
That's the hard part.
Yes,
That's why
we
I
have-
was saying vending machine, they're all.
Yeah,
But
you're right. I was
wherever.
thinking my days of running over, because it was always on the north side. And that's the door we always came in, so.
Very few of the public actually use that door.
You are correct. They usually come in a different door, the east door. So, okay, yeah, we'll look at places we could put them, and, we'll look at different costs, and maybe it's just as easy to put them in 2 locations, 1 or 2 in each location.
That's not a horrible idea. Couple little boxes on each door and be done with it.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely take a look at that.
Well, I'm encouraged. I've had a couple different people besides me have a problem with that, so.
Anything else?
That's it. That's all I got.
Jeff, your workshop is on the 18th of May.
Okay.
Beginning it.
Thank you. I also need a little bit of time on this Thursday's workshop, if I could.
We'll get you in there.
Okay, it'll be quick. I think you and I talked about this. At least I remember it, maybe. That doesn't mean it happened, but,
You might already be there. I don't know.
okay, thanks a lot, Lee.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
You
you.
notice, Mr. Director, I didn't call you intern. Hopefully soon I can not call Mr. Seth intern.
We're working on it. Thank you.
Did you see the state governor signed off on the high top in Estrella?
The what?
FSEX, the governor signed off on high top in Estrella. There's an article in the Yakima Herald.
No, how does it?
Summary.
Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, and everything reset too. That's wonderful.
Oh, it is, the computers are restarting. Mine like wants to restart every 2 hours.
Okay, we're running a little behind, but next up is department update from Code Compliance Officer George Sendejas. Go ahead, sir.
So if I may, before we start with the whole firearm thing, I used to work at the sheriff's office, so I'm a little, so those blue boxes, law enforcement uses them quite often to come in and out of the jail. So a lot of the times, law enforcement's firearms are in there. If we ever call for backup, I've noticed that law enforcement shows up, and if those blue lockers are used or full, then they have to go run back out, drop their firearm in their car, and then come back into the jail. So we do need more lockers. I know it's been brought up before, but
How many are there? Do you know?
I think there's I want to say less than 10. There's not many.
Well, and then, like I said, people would have to park in the courthouse parking lot, walk around the side, go into the jail, get buzzed in, wait for the person to say, what do you want? Talk on the camera, I need to lock my gun up, and then get buzzed in the door, and then come out and go to, that's not accessible. to the
And
public.
the signs on the court building, from my observations, I've been sitting down there, watch someone come up with a firearm on their hip, right? They come up to the door and then they walk away. I can see where they go to their car, drop off their firearm, and then come into the building. So now I know where there's an unsecure firearm, and I would rather have it on somebody's hip, honestly, than to have it in someone's car.
I'm waiting.
But those are my 2 cents. Code compliance is currently sitting at 29 open cases. 8 cases have been accepted since my last update. 5 cases were either came into compliance or were closed due to unfounded allegations. I'll briefly cover some of the cases presented in my last update. So a 600 series property in Woodland contacted me as requested by my department since initiating the 90-day grace period. He expressed a desire to clean and organize the property, but blamed his bad health and his inability to do so. He agreed to continue to work on removing junk from the property slowly. I gave him a pamphlet from the senior service volunteer crew as a possible resource. I've not been able to do an inspection, although I have seen him cleaning up while driving past his address. A 400 series property in Woodland has contacted me requesting a site inspection. That was the tenant. I have not had time to do an inspection. The parcel owners also contacted my department stating a possible eviction of the current tenant. If ownership is resumed, the property owners have a contractor on standby. Nonetheless, the tenants and property owners assured me the property will be cleaned up. The property is now approximately 90% held up by multiple junk vehicles. I did confirm through the sheriff's office that a Hulk inspection was conducted for around 5 to 6 vehicles. Some are too big or damaged to transport. And these are like semi-trailers that have huge gaping holes on the side of them, so they're definitely not roadworthy. I did meet up the contractor on the site, and he was saying that what he had to do was probably cut the semi in sections and then transport them out. So time consuming, expensive, but it'll get done. North Lake Drive was also allotted 90-day as of my last update. The property owner contacted me after tracking him to an address in Clark County. He stated he had been on the property removing vehicles from the parcel. He states that at a minimum, he removed 8 vehicles from the property. I relayed to the property owner that the county has allotted him plenty of time and will monitor his parcel. The owner states he's leaning towards building a fence, then removing the vehicles from the parcel. Either would place him into compliance. A site inspection was conducted shortly after our conversation. I did not see any improvements from the easement. This was relayed to the property owner, who was offended by my observations. I asked him to call me when he's removing vehicles off-site, and I'll gladly document all improvements conducted in the future. As of now, I did not annotate any improvements since my last visit. I also contacted the sheriff's office, and they had no idea of any, they had no records of Hulk inspections being called from that address. So as of right now, there's no proof that vehicles were actually taken out of the property. So at this point, I'm just going to continue with the 90-day, and we'll see. April 5th of this year, a property owner near Highway 97 was issued an infraction through East District Court under KC Klickitat County Code 810-170 for failure to repair or maintain sewer. An email was sent to the health department for assistance in removing or revoking the on-site sewage permit issued belonging to this address. I believe before we can do anything else, I'm not completely sure, but I believe we have to allow the property owner to respond to the infraction. He could either pay it or contest it, and then we can do something else. which would be either revoking the permit or issuing another infraction. I was absent March 20th to the 24th. Upon my return, I was focused on time-sensitive cases, mostly sewage-related. One of them being an encampment erected in Lyle, close to Fisher Hill Hatchery. I've been in contact with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife in Yakima Nation. While these properties are under WFW, from the sounds of it, most are leased to Yakima Nation. I spoke with tribal members who assured me that they were aware of the situation and were working on a resolution. I requested WDFW to conduct a site visit with our health department present, but I have not heard back. I did call multiple times, left voicemails, and no one's called me back. So I foresee most agencies not getting involved due to the issues falling under the jurisdiction of tribal. Until I receive clarification, my department is also stepping back.
How does that work if it's Fish and Wildlife property, but they lease it? I guess I would say I kind of look at it the same as if it's Forest Service property and they lease it to a cattle grazer or whatever. Isn't it still the property owner that would get the citation?
Yes.
So you would still be, if they're leasing it to Yakima Nation or Joe Blow, for all I care, if it's still under the property owner's jurisdiction to make sure that no violations are happening on their property, and they're the ones that would receive the violation, the ticket.
Yes.
Okay, so with that in question, why would we be stepping back?
So
It would be a property owner not being compliant, which is
why I reached,
wildlife.
which is why I reached out to Fish and Wildlife, is because they're the property owners and they pretty much everyone's been dragging their feet. As soon as Yakima Nation was mentioned, everyone's wanted, pretty much I've had no one contact me after it was brought up that I want to move forward with cleanup.
How long has it been since you did a site visit down there?
It was right after I came back from March 29th.
Okay. I think they have cleaned up some of it.
Okay.
You might want to look again.
Okay.
Yeah. There's
it's
a big
actively
concern
working.
still, but I
Yeah.
think they have done quite a bit of it so far.
Good.
Yeah, the tribe did assure me that they were working on, that they were aware of it and they were working on it. Not just on that one, there's also another encampment that you can see from the Klickitat Bridge. That one is under Yakima Nations. There, it's owned by it's native land. But they did appreciate people bringing it up to their
Aren't there
attention.
two different types? There's tribal trust ground, and then there's also like tribal purchase ground, like the Lyle Point, right? That they bought that, you know, it was going to be developed, and that's not, I mean, that's owned by a tribal corporation, but that's not their trust ground. And so we can actually drive through it and go on that property. I saw a county rig driving through it the other day. So I don't know how that works with this property up Klickitat.
Well, I guess I just want it clean.
Mhm.
And well, I can't go and do much with tribal. If it's Fish and Wildlife property, we can write them citation. Eventually they'll get tired of paying the citation and do something about it. So, yeah, but as long as it's actually being,
I think it might be being addressed.
if it's being addressed, I'm okay with that.
It's a strange, from the fishway, a little ways down, it still doesn't look like anything's been touched, but just below that, it's clean almost all the way down to the bridge now.
Yeah,
So I don't know why they stopped where they stopped, but
not sure.
at least they're working on it.
The parcel is kind of, it's weird. It kind of, it's not just like a square, conventional square. It like drops off and then picks up in random spots, so.
And that might be part of the
Yeah.
problem, yeah.
But I will check up on, I'll check with Yakima Nation to see if they have any updates. I also received a complaint from the sheriff's office regarding a safety concern. Vehicles were parked along the road of Arrow Street in Roosevelt. Arrow Street is now clear and free of obstructions. The fire department relayed the inability to use the road to enter or exit the fire station. The station bays exit from two sides, which is the north and south. Arrow Street and Juniper. Juniper is an actual road. Arrow is a primitive dirt road. With all the clutter removed from Arrow, it exposed the dirt road's condition. The road is too bumpy and has deep ruts. The firehouse mentioned they would still only be able to run certain or not run any equipment down the dirt road. The portion of the complaint was forwarded to the road department. I was advised the Arrow would not be maintained, and this was relayed to the complainant, and I closed the case. Troll Lane and Glenwood, this case was resumed. The property owner had passed away, and due to back taxes, the property was in limbo on who should take ownership. The property ownership was transferred within the family after taxes were brought current. An inspection conducted yesterday showed massive improvements. Scrap piles are seen throughout the property, and a substantial amount of junk has been removed from the parcel. There's still lots of work to be done to come into compliance, but regardless, I have seen progress for the first time since the case opened back in 2021. I would gauge the project at around 20% completion. And then finally, I enrolled to Washington Associative Code Enforcement. The next lecture is scheduled for April 27th. This lecture will be focused on skip tracing. This classroom will be conducted virtually, and then the next conference is scheduled for September 15th in Leavenworth for a single day event.
Why skip tracing?
It is when the person you're looking for, they don't have a last known address, or they've just been avoiding you.
So like your Woodland Road guy where you had to go find him over in Vancouver.
In Clark County.
Makes sense. Any questions? Nope. Okay, good.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're off into board pending. I do have actually it says board's legislative issues discussion. Not a legislative issue, but it's on my mind, and I'd hate to forget because we haven't done it yet, and I keep forgetting. Is there any interest from my seatmates in submitting a legal opinion request to the prosecutor on the Klickitat mill site? And if we were to, do we have any liability for any contaminants that are there now since we adopted the property? And would there be any liability if we subdivided the property into the three pieces that we were kind of previously talking about? To at least better inform us on that so that we can, I wouldn't say move forward, but at least have more information for informed discussion on how we want to move forward on that.
I think there was some sort of opinion request done way back when on our liability with regards to it.
I didn't know about splitting it would change that.
I think I would check with the departments that are in charge of how that splitting happens, because I think you're going to have requirements. You have to clean it up before you can split it, would be my guess. But you could ask.
We were really close to getting it completely authorized, like our section, because there's the other property. And so we went through the process in 2017, 2018 of splitting the whole overall project into two things, because we only have that one little area where the fuel and oil station was, and they didn't find anything throughout the rest of it.
The rest of our actual piece.
The rest of our actual piece. The upper portion, with the reason that none of it got released is there was a bunch of transformers that went missing about 15, 20 years ago. And when Ecology found out about that, they went, no, you got to find those transformers. Well, it's been 15 years. We never found the transformers. They're not on site. And so that's why we were working on it in 2017 to try to get the full green light that we can move forward with disposition and however we want to do it. So I think there's a bunch of information already out there on what you can and can't do with it. I don't know if we want to move forward with more information so that we understand it better before we ask the prosecutor. I think we've asked the prosecutor for a few PA opinion requests lately, and we're still waiting on those. And do we want to throw this one on top of it when there's probably more information we can find?
Well, in the one building, I think we were okay. We were clear with it because everything that might have been there was encapsulated, was left. And then when that roof fell in, Public Works we went down and looked at that with Public Works. That may be one of the only things that we're facing needs to be cleaned up.
So we've got the asbestos with that building, whatever's left of it. But the contamination, and that wasn't on the list, the contamination was
That spot out in front of the building.
out in front of the building.
But
that had
that's
the
to me
fuel.
right next to where they want to put that stream bed. So that was kind of my worry on that one.
Right, and we got that email that they're looking into potentially wanting to own that stream bed section, which that liability.
Right, but they had a opinion request that was kind of the same thing. They're under the interpretation that regardless, we're responsible for the cleanup, and I don't know that I've ever been given that legal opinion.
I don't,
In that email, they said because whoever they were gonna work with, that might wanna own the stream bed, was saying that we might still be, and that's why I wanted actual legal opinion over hearsay, but I'm not saying hearsay is bad.
Is there
But there
any-
might already be a legal opinion out there somewhere that.
Is
something
there any
might go-
certificate, Jake, from Department of Ecology or any leftover documents that say, okay, you're done, you're released now, you've got,
I'd have to go, I mean, this has been
Yeah.
5 years since I've
'cause
been.
I think they have to issue you a release from Ecology.
Right, right, and so we were getting really close. It's, Richard has all the documents.
Okay.
Dave has all the documents about where we were. I'd have to go back through emails from 7 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure we've gotten documentation from the treasurer on what that parcel is too, but again, I would argue that that's a previous board and I don't know that others.
But again,
so-
it's, right now, it's, we're holding it in trust.
Right.
It's not our property. We haven't bought the property and assumed the
That's
liability.
kind of my point. So in my thinking, if we subdivide it, are we now owning the property and liable for each piece?
Technically, we already did. When we gave, was it the fire department, that property down there to build theirs, that it's their property, that was all part of that parcel, so technically we've already split it.
So regardless of the answer to that question.
I mean, there's a little more nuance to that because the fire department had their junior tax liability that was still assessed to that parcel. And when we transferred it to them, I think we kind of dissolved ourselves from that tax liability for paying them for if we sell it.
Well, and I would still kind of point out that potentially if we did ever, dig something up and found ooze, it doesn't necessarily mean the county's paying for it. There are companies that will go back with whoever it was insured with at the time of the ooze and go back against that insurance company to pay for the cost of cleaning up the ooze, so.
I still don't know what, like, on the rest of our parcel, what the ooze would be. Like, I understand, like, the fuel, oil, truck repair shop, you see that all the time, especially back in the old days. A lot of that ground was where you stored the lumber. I ain't worried about that, where they paved that over.
Right, but that fuel area, you might be like our hole in the parking lot out here. It could be $100,000.
Right, but that's the thing is the fuel area is it's dissipated. And so that's why we were working on getting that, okayed and, moving forward. The only other place that I would have any worries or concerns is down in the old, what's that, the reman shed right there next to the road. That building right there, but I don't know what that would be other than, oil for machinery or something that would potentially leak into the ground.
Yeah, I don't think that's that big. That fuel area is the biggest one, I think.
Right. And we've done studies over that for 15 years and.
Even when I was there, there was a man named Tony Valero that came from DOE, and they installed a series of wells, and even all the way down almost to the Klickitat store, so they could see if anything was migrating. And we got a clean bill of health then.
And you had 20 years to that, and it only gets cleaner, not.
Right, but I thought Ecology said with their sign off that if we opened it up, they would relook at it. I thought that was the term. So my point is, if we start playing around with where the fuel area is, which is my biggest concern, they come back out and say, oh, no, especially when it's, 20 feet from a creek, or where they want to put the creek. Then now you're not pulling that out.
Well, before we send something over to the PA, I'll commit to looking for some documents and seeing if we can't find a couple answers first.
It would just, I don't know, I guess I'm just
We're
trying to
gonna
keep
have
that
to
on the
know.
forefront. We need to know so that we can make decisions moving forward. And hopefully not push this can down the road another 10 years.
Yep.
So, because it'd be nice to get something in there. Whether that's a nice creek in a park or something, whatever, storefronts, whatever. It'd be nice to do something other than what's there.
You got anything else?
No, WASAC was, legislation's pretty much done other than budgety stuff and the transportation budget's being way off. But it sounds like those aren't issues. I worried about the transportation budgets being off and the governor throwing a fistful about that we might lose funding for bridge and whatnot in there, but apparently that isn't the issue with the budget. The issue with the transportation budget is how much work can WashDOT actually do in a year.
Right.
And they gave them twice as much work that they can actually get done in a year. So that's the part of the budget that is going to be beat up on, not non-WashDOT projects. So that made me feel better, but.
So I got a little bit of an update. In the Senate version, there was 15 million this biennium, 30 million the next, 30 million the next for the bridge, which leaves about $44 million left. The House had nothing. They went into conference. Senator King was able to get the 15, 30, 30. And so that is getting baked in, and he needs all the kudos in the world for getting that done.
So does Washington still need 44?
44 after that in order to meet the 125 that we figured. That's what we figured their share is. So he's done that. There's also been discussion that Senator King wants to ensure that the bridge tolls are not being redirected after 2026, and they should be going down until then. He had a call with Kevin Greenwood this morning. The port has a meeting this evening because, as I think I let you guys know, the port said they put out a policy recommendation that they would not divert funds after 2028. And the rest of the convening governments, all of us that serve on the Bi-State Bridge Authority, Bi-State Working Group said that doesn't pass the sniff test. I mean, Benjamin Mayer says, it should be off now.
It should.
Right. And I think everybody knows that it should, but I mean, I've spent the weekend going through their budget, and they've got a drawdown makes sense. I think that's fair and reasonable with how much they're gonna have to do with building, setting up the new bridge and working with the Bi-State Bridge Authority. So hopefully this evening, the Port Commission will change their resolution to 2026. If they do that, I think all of the, from our meeting yesterday, the rest of the governments will do everything we can to get the commission formation agreement passed before the end of the month, because that's when we told the federal delegation that it would be done. And I think this port, or not the port, the county of Hood River will hold a special meeting just to pass the CFA. So I wanted to let you guys know that that's kind of where we're at. And as long as, you know, they make that goodwill, good faith effort tonight, I would like to put that commission formation agreement on next week's agenda. If there's any questions or problems you guys have, I mean, I know we're all kind of like, you shouldn't be diverting any money right now.
That's my hardest part about it. And I mean, they can divert whatever they divert, but it would be hard for me as a senator or legislator to give you money when you're taking money from bridge tolls and putting it over on your park or your boat ramp or whatever. Why am I giving you money?
They have to transition, but that's quite a ways out.
28 is a hard transition. Will come back to me in 28 and ask for money. And I'll give it to you in 28. So I'm glad that Mr. King is pushing for a sooner timeframe, and hopefully the port will listen. Yeah. Same deal, especially if they're going to raise their tolls, you know. Are you gonna raise the tolls between now and 2028 or 2026?
Where it's gonna be a big
And then you
raise,
just, you know.
but all that money is going into the TIFIA.
But the general public won't be aware of that. So they're gonna be assuming it's still being diverted.
Technically,
So-
it will be until 26 potentially.
That's my point. So, yeah, no, it's cleaner this way, but I said I'll still complain about the diversion, but as long as progress is being made.
The other thing with that same regard, I got an email. There is the Bluff Pedestrian Connector Trail, which is the White Salmon Bluff Trail, and the Bingen Sidewalk Project that they're looking for letters of support for.
Is that the stairway up the mountain?
The Bluff Trail could be the stairway. It could be not a stairway, but a trail up dock grade, creating a separation. The reason I bring this up is that, you know, $50 million of this big bridge is going to be for multimodal transportation, which is bike, ped, you know, that kind of stuff. We won't be able to get the multimodal transportation dollars to hopefully come up with that if you get to the end of the bridge and there's nowhere to go. And so that's why we're looking at this holistically, saying, you know, if we're working on these bike ped trails so that once you come across the bridge, you can either get to the bridge or you have somewhere to go once you get off the bridge. So they're looking for letters of support, and I wanted to see the board's opinion on whether or not we should write something.
So they're asking letters of support to get state funding or federal funding for that? They're not asking for county dollars?
It's state funding, and for both of those. One is RTC, I think, and then the other one I think is RCO. But no, they're not asking for us to come up with the match.
Any idea what they're what the cost is?
Oh, I can pull it up.
I know I ask way too many questions.
It's not $50 million.
Well, different people have different opinions of what is a good use of taxpayer funds and how much, so that's hence the reason I ask. I mean, if it's reasonable, I think it'd be a good deal.
So the RTC TAP grant is for $85,745, and that is on design,
That's on design.
which I figured that's probably preliminary design. Oh, see, here's how it shows. So the new bridge ends here. There's,
Yeah, so it's mostly a
Dock grid.
trail and not much of a stairway.
yeah, view, and then there's viewing platforms. And then it comes up where the old stairways. See, this is the old stairwell, kind of right there. And I do believe that the city has got the property owners on board, which I didn't think would ever happen.
I'm surprised they want to get into another
Here's a picture of the,
$1 billion type of project.
that was the original stairs,
Doesn't that sound
the
fun?
bluff steps. Which, you know, funny, when you go to Hood River, our bluff steps match the Hood River bluff steps. You know, they go right past horse feathers.
I was a little worried maybe it was preliminary, but I understand what you're saying about moving forward so you can access the other funding justification.
Right.
So I would support it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got Mount Adams Transportation Services, Friends of the Columbia Gorge, City of Bingen, City of White Salmon, Community Partners, Friends of the White Salmon Bluff, Mount Adams Chamber, all signed on to it.
And if they're providing it across the bridge, it's going to be dangerous. You get to the other side, you've got to have somewhere to go over there.
Right. And then the other one is the Bingen Sidewalk Project, and that's for, it doesn't say.
If they're just asking for letters of support and not county dollars, I'm in favor of signing a letter of support for them to chase a grant.
Okay, well, if that's, I'll get this sent over to Lee and Elisa. Okay, that's all I have for right now. Is there anything else, sir?
I don't think I have anything.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to recess for the lunch hour.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recess for lunch. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of recessing for lunch, be back at 1 o'clock, say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. All right, it is 1 o'clock. We will call our meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did forget to mention, to let the record show all three commissioners are present.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the business agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the business agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. We do not have any commissioner meeting minutes. So we will move on to citizen comment. Citizen comment will be 3 minutes per individual. Please state your name and your general location in the county for the record for us. Please keep any comments pertinent to business in the county and not federal issues. With that, we will start in the room. Does anybody have any citizen comment? Seeing none, we will go online. Does anybody have citizen comment online? Unmute yourself, raise your hand, or just unmute yourself and start talking and we'll see that you're there. I'm seeing none there either. Only 28 participants. We're losing our popularity. All righty. Well, we will go on about signing business and signing paperwork and doing other business. If you have citizen comment, raise your hand, say something, get our attention, and we will provide you with your time. Do you have any gravel I can try and shake? No, but if you find some, you can drop off 2 dump trucks with trailer loads at my house for me. No, in my house. It needs to be on the driveway. So technically 1 dump truck and a pup can be in the driveway and the other one in a pile. And I'll use that throughout the year. No, unfortunately, I'll probably be calling Riley Brothers, and my guess is it's $1,600. I usually only get 1 load per year, but I didn't get one last year, so I have none, so.
Do you want this back in the packet or hand it to Lee?
If we've all signed everything, yeah, just check it over there. One of these days, we're all gonna remember every signature, and we're gonna give our staff nothing to do. They won't be able to chase us down later
Leave it
for
and I
missing
check
signatures.
them and I miss them.
Oh, we have a hand up. Sherry, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sherry and Hewsome. I'd like to talk about the Carriager Solar Project, April 25th meeting with FSEC in Goldendale at the Grange. I know that you've talked about this and I've been reviewing FSEC's paperwork or their processes. And this was spoke about last week. And on their notice of informational public hearing that they sent to, I'm sure you all, as well as other people on the other people on the mailing list. And what is interesting about this is, you questioned last week whether they would be doing a land use consistency hearing right then and there at the end of this meeting. Well, it doesn't appear like they will probably be doing that decision making right then and there. Maybe, maybe not. Again, they're not communicating real well with our county, and that's disappointing. But on this invitation or this notice of the public meeting, it says a SEPA threshold determination. And after FSEC determines if the ASC, which is the application, as we know, is complete, the SEPA responsible official FSEC director will make a threshold determination. This requirement is to determine whether the environmental impact statement is required prior to considering a recommendation for certification. And that the threshold determination will be made based on probable project impacts identified in the information presented in the ASC. So because of time limited here, I feel it's crucial, and I know that the county is working on it. This application from Carriager is going to be treated, from my understanding, just like any other SEPA threshold determination. And our county should be working very hard to present the facts prior to the 25th to FSEC, where there are probable project impacts. And it should be clearly noted, and I didn't see a letter go out, and hopefully that letter is still in the works, that we do have a moratorium. And no matter how much anybody wants to say that moratorium has no effect, that the governor can just ramrod over our county. Well, I'd rather us assert us, the county, your constituents, the people that will be heavily impacted for 50 years or more to come. That's a long time. That's generations. The comments are put together how this application is inconsistent with our land use. And I'd like to ask all 3 commissioners, will you plan on participating in this April 5th meeting? And if you could share with me your thoughts on how our county is going to address FSEC and their process coming this April 25th. I feel this is vital to the future of our county, and I'm hoping our county will stand strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, we'll go, well, for anybody not listening, the commissioners usually respond to comments or make statements the last 5 minutes of the half an hour. So if you're new to this, and you don't hear us give Sherry a response, that's because we do it at the end. With that, does anybody else have public comment that they would like to have before the Board of Commissioners today, either online or in the room? Still seeing none. Okay, again, we will go back to other business. This whole half hour is blocked out for citizen comment, so we will wait here in anticipation of any further citizen comment. Oh, you want that back? That might be in part of your response to her.
No, I actually gave that to you.
I know. I read it.
I even gave Lee one for the record.
For those that are wondering what we're talking about up here, I'm reading I'm looking at a Yakima Herald news story of Governor approves 2 Yakima solar projects. And this news story was done on April 17th, 2023. So it should be fairly easy to find for anybody that wants to go read about his approval of the 2 projects.
Lee, we have people in the waiting room.
I see 0088. Name and general location for the record, sir.
Delmer Eldred, Goldendale. I just wonder if the commissioners actually realize the full impact of this solar. I mean, it's going to change the landscape integrity of the whole county. And, you know, there's no turning back. I mean, once this is done, it's done. There's no repairing what the damage is done. There's no turning back the amount of erosion that's going to occur that has occurred everywhere these large solar sites have been developed. And, you know, the thing is it's just like, who benefits from this solar? We have 1,200 hydroelectric dams in the state of Washington. We have 20 gas generated electricity units in the state of Washington. We have, according to the Washington Energy Analysis, we have a sustainable amount of geothermal that hasn't even been tapped yet. So why are we even talking about this renewable energy that has nothing but, as you look across the whole spectrum, every place that has assumed that they were going to rely on this renewable energy and the problems they're having and the lack of electricity. I mean, a lot of these places are in energy poverty because of these developments. So I just can't imagine that commissioners in the Klickitat County that really care about the county, care about the people, and care about the future of this county are even aren't standing up and strong against all of this development that they want to take over this agricultural land and devastate the habitat grazing lands. You know, it's just one problem after another with this stuff. I mean, who would buy something that millions of people have already had problems with? That's stupid, you know. But anyway, I just think the commissioners need to stand up and be more vocal that we're not allowing this in the county because of the damage and that it causes, and it's not going to be short term. This damage lasts forever. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you, Del. Anybody else online or in the room have citizen comment or questions for the Board of Commissioners?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead. Name and general location, please.
Gabrielle Gilbert, Fruit Valley. I want the commissioners to care about this community as well and get childcare to assist families living in Klickitat County and the need for it. I want to also speak that apparently there was an email sent to WAGAP concerning the youth center. And there was in the email, is in my understanding, that their funding would be jeopardized concerning community service. The problem with what you ask of it too, if that email is actually what was sent, is that I think it would be dangerous if you have young children picking up trash when we still have to address COVID. We have a respiratory virus that has been going around the community and the schools. You have a stomach virus that has been showing up. There are health issues that need to be considered. And maybe instead of sending emails that jeopardize one of the few things that you do support financially from the county and has proven to be an excellent after school opportunity for kids and for their parents to continue working, that you'd actually come and meet the children that you're saying that you would take away their funding, and you'd actually talk to them about what kind of community service would be beneficial to make their obligation, but also keep them safe. And I really feel that, you're a county of commissioners that don't want to be seen defunding the police. Well, you should also not be seen defunding what little there is in childcare and what little there is in child services in the county, and that you would actually elevate as opposed to putting those kind of emails out. And if that email exists, I'd like to know who sent that and who ordered that and why anyone would think that that was an okay email to send. And that I would think that you would actually treasure the young people in this community and the people that work with them and treat them with respect. And you should come down and visit the youth center, and you should look these kids in the eye, and then you would tell them that you would actually ever consider defunding what you already cut their program anyway with funding during COVID. So, come on down and say that in person. And honestly, it's kind of disrespectful in every way. And you really should start respecting what WAGAP does and really respecting absolutely what happens in the youth center. So I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Any other citizen comment in the room or online? 7211, name and general location, please.
Greg Wagner with C. The boards has had over 2 months since the Carriager plan was submitted to FSEC. And I don't see anything really being done by the commissioners. 2 weeks ago, Dan Christopher told us we had a strategy. Have no idea what that means. And I guess if I ask you to tell me what the strategy is, you're going to tell me, oh, I can't do that because then FSEC will know. I don't believe there's any strategy. I don't believe there's any coordination between the 3 commissioners to have any bearing, make any decisions on the FSEC, make any input. You didn't write any letters. I doubt if you studied any of the ASC or any of the additional documents to find discrepancies, omissions, or flaws with it. I don't believe you've done anything to protect our county. Are you going to be at this meeting next Tuesday and represent the county, or are you going to stay away? That's your job, to represent us as citizens in the county. I don't believe you're doing that. I've listened to you talk and talk and talk. Maybe you just talk in circles. Last week I heard Dan Christopher say, I'm confused. Like, FSEC should tell us step by step what we're supposed to do. That's not FSEC's job. That's your job as a commissioner and as a board, to study everything you need to study and be prepared when FSEC comes to town. You can go on the FSEC website and learn a lot. That's how I've learned a lot, and other members have, and other citizens. You can go in there and see what their process is. They trust the process. Know that? The guy that always tells us to trust the process. So all you got to do is go in there and do your job. Start standing up for the citizens instead of hiding out and not doing your job. That's what we pay you for. You are public servants. I'd also like to know, I've been asking for months now, what about this short-term rental that this prosecuting attorney is supposed to be writing? He's 5 weeks overdue. Is he not writing this short-term rental ordinance to protect his friend Jake Anderson? Jake Anderson has 2 code complaints filed against this short-term rental. When is this going to get resolved? If it was Greg Wagner with the short-term rental unpermitted, there would be action being taken against any other citizen. Jake Anderson is nothing but a citizen, yet he's a commissioner. He's getting special treatment. He's violating the state laws. He's getting special privilege and exemption. He sits on the board and supervises the code compliance officer who's supposed to be enforcing the code complaint filed against him, a direct conflict of interest. Lori Zoller has the short-term rental. She went through the process. She trusted the process. She has a conditional use permit. The other week when the state park issue was
Thank you, Mr.
coming up,
Wagner.
she recused herself, unlike
Mr.
Jake
Wagner,
Anderson.
your time is up.
Yeah, that's fine. Goodbye.
Any other citizens in the room or online have citizen comment for the commissioners today?
Can you see the list? I can see it.
I'm on
There
the
it is.
list on the side over here. I'm not seeing any. Any other comments out there for the commissioners? That's Dell again. He's already spoken. And citizen comment, you have a citizen comment for us? No? I see a phone number 3245. If you have a citizen comment, please give your name and general location for the record.
My name's Ken McCune, Goldendale. Yes, I went to the Planning Commission meeting last night, and I'm really glad that I did. The 6 people that were there on the Planning Commission, I was able to get a good insight into what they are feeling about these projects. And they had really grave concerns about removing productive agricultural land from production, out of production. And they had concerns about density, the density of population surrounding these sites. They gave the indication that they would prefer areas like Bickleton that don't have like maybe one or two people living on thousands of acres instead of having hundreds of people living in the same area. It was worth going to. I was surprised that at least one of you didn't show up, because then you could have compared the feelings of those people with any feelings you guys might be having about the issues. And just hope that, unfortunately, what it boiled down to, and I would like to commend Mochi Lindblad. She ran a wonderful meeting. But in the end, she pretty much indicated that FSEC and the governor can override any regulations that the county may come up with between now and the big decision-making day. So any opposition is right now is just, it's like dust in the wind. FSEC is going to do it. They want to do it. They're going to do it. There's nothing we can do to stop it, the way it sounds to me. I know a couple of you there don't really have a whole lot of good feelings about FSEC, and that's a good reason why, because they are, according to what Mochi was saying, if I understood her correctly, they will override any kind of roadblocks that they may encounter here in the county. So they didn't mention anything about the landowners, though, being, if the landowners don't agree to the deals, these behind the door in secret deals, then nothing would be happening. But too many of them are already signed up to have it done, and thousands of acres just right on the entryway to Goldendale is already committed to accepting them. And I know money's a big issue, but so is livability and habitat. And
Thank you, Mr. McCune. I'm sure we'll respond to your questions there if you give us another minute.
Alrighty.
If you're looking for a response anyway, we'll go to the last call if anybody else has any citizen comment before we hear some commissioners' responses, online or in the room. Hearing none. Do either one of my seatmates want to start with responses?
Sure,
Okay,
I'll start.
Ms. Solar.
I'm going to start with Gabrielle. Gabrielle, we have not got to visit, but I wanted to let you know I have not forgot you and your efforts. I do read everything that comes across my emails and my desk, but right now, because of the solar process and the FSEC process being so short with very, very little notification and so much to do for the commissioners and the departments, I've kind of set aside a lot of things for the next 2 weeks just to read everything and work on that. But that does not mean that I won't be back to help you with the childcare that you care about. And then I'm going to combine Sherry and Dell and Greg. I can speak for myself on the solar. I have dove in. I work probably just about 7 days a week and at night reading, computing. I've made relationships with FSEC and project manager. I communicate with them. I actually had a visit this morning about their new notifications. It is a tough process, and there seems to be a disconnect a little bit about notifications to our county about their processes. And we do have to reach out and get those. And I'm committed to finding the information and getting it out as soon as possible for the public. They did commit that the site evaluation hearing, they're going to pick sometime in mid-May for that, but they haven't landed on that date yet. And yeah, there's a lot to do. And I will be at the meeting. I hope to have input, or I plan on having input. And we're also working with all of our departments, and they're trimming through the documents and trying to formulate their assessment of things to share with the commissioners to set up for those meetings that are coming up. So it may not look like it, but we are working very hard on those, and the time is short. And Mr. McEwen, thank you for attending Planning Commission. I think everybody knows I'm a big, big fan of citizen boards. I believe we need to hear from our public, and the input that they have is very, very valuable for the commissioners. And sometimes we don't come to meetings because that gets us in a sticky situation of a quorum if one or two are in the room. And then there's also 1,000 other meetings that we have to attend, but we always catch up and hear what the boards have talked about and what they're doing. And I have already heard about that meeting last night, and it was a good meeting. And what else was I going to tell you? I can tell you that as far as FSEC just doing what they want, I stand pretty much on law and proper process. That's what's important to me. We can get into all the emotional issues over everything, and I do care for people. I care for their property rights, but I want to see everything go through proper law and proper process, and that's what I push for. I think the FSEC process is being tested. They were nuclear, they moved into the wind realm, and now we're facing solar. So they've been into the game for a year or so, but they also are adjusting how they work, what they can do, and how they set up and structure these meetings. And as far as them being able to just sign it off and send it to the governor, and he signs it, it's still a little bit of a process there before it gets to his desk. He did sign one for the Yakima Valley yesterday, but now we have the proving ground of federal overlay. Where do they see in what we're pushing through environmentally? And are we crisscrossing things that are going to come to the surface and maybe end up in court? We don't know that yet. So it's a testing ground. But thank you, everybody, for chiming in.
Chris Anderson?
Yes, Gabrielle, if you can find out more information about this supposed email, that would be great. And please email me anything you have on it. I wrote nothing. I looked at my seatmates' faces. I don't think any of them wrote anything, nor staff. So if you can get us information on that, that would be great. With regards to the youth center, the county has funded the youth center. During COVID, when it was closed, there was likely a reduction in funds going to the youth center because it was closed for a while. But I have been in the youth center. My own son has went to the youth center for many years, and it is a place that he cherishes. With regards to Mr. Eldred, Mr. Wagner, and Ms. Bosque, you sit here and you've listened for multiple years. We talk almost nearly every Tuesday about this project, about solar. This is on the top of our list. You will have noticed that we sent a letter to FSEC requesting that the land use determination, consistency determination be pushed off rather than combining those at that meeting. And that occurred, and that was likely due to the work of our staff in getting that letter out. That has given us the amount of time so that we're not doing a land use consistency determination comments. Instead, we can focus on comments with regards to the SEPA and trying to push for an EIS, and we have directed staff to do that. You think that these things can happen overnight. I'm sorry, that's just not the way it goes. We will have something to prepare. It is what I've been saying since they first put in the application, that we need to prepare. We need to work on this now and start preparing to respond to these things so that we're not stuck doing it the last week. You've heard me say that. So when you say things like, do your job, you're not doing anything, I'm sorry, that's just factually incorrect. And they have a process. They're going to follow their process because they don't want to get sued for not following process. You are right, Greg, their process is on their website. And I would recommend that all people go out and look at that. I would recommend that everyone look at the AC or ASC and study it so that you have your own comments that hopefully back the county's comments to push for a full EIS being done on this project. And I hope that everybody comes to the meeting on Tuesday to say that.
that conclude your comments, sir?
With Mr. McKeown, I did not attend the meeting last night, either by Zoom or in person, because I was in another meeting. I as well heard that it was a great meeting and it was a good start. And that the Planning Commission, while they have many different things they're dealing with, I look forward to seeing what they come up with in terms of recommendations for solar ordinances, setbacks, and everything else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anderson. As far as my responses to Sherry and the solar meeting, I have already signed up to testify at that meeting through the email link that they provided in their disclosure, in their meeting notice. I also posted that meeting notice on my county Facebook page and on Everything Goldendale, so everybody can be aware of it. I do plan to testify at that meeting, but I will be testifying as Dan Christopher, not as Klickitat County, because all three of our testimonies are so different. We have not gave each other permission to speak on behalf of the county, so we would have to prepare a statement and get our seatmates to sign off on everything we said in order to speak for the county. So that may happen, but it also might be that you have individual commissioners there speaking on behalf of the individual commissioner and not on behalf of the county. Dell, your statement, I got a lot of solar is bad, but you didn't really ask any questions, so I didn't really have any questions to answer. But I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said either. Gabrielle, I don't know anything about an email to WAGAP telling them to do their community service, so they're out. I know as part of their contract agreement that they proposed to the county years ago, there was some like one time a year litter pickup at the park and ride that they didn't do for a while there because of COVID. I don't know if they're planning on doing it again this year. I don't know anything about that because it's just not been a topic of discussion at the commissioner's office. So you might have information we don't have, or you might have got information hearsay from somebody who's not abreast of what's going on. Greg, I'm not going to answer Greg's comments because they were full of misquotes and inaccurate statements and non-factual statements that I would just have to spend the entire time correcting the statements. Mr. McKeown, thank you for your testimony. I agree with you, sir. It's refreshing to me, while I did not attend the Planning Commission meeting last night because I was in a different meeting and then I had another a dinner engagement. It is my hope to at least attend some of them going forward. And I advised our planning director that when she posts those Planning Commission meetings, to make sure she makes note that one or more commissioners may be attending on all of them going forward. Because as the Board of Commissioners don't usually attend the Citizen Advisory Board hearings or meetings, on this issue, it's very possible that one of us shows up. It's very possible that all of us show up. So I want to make sure it's noted in every one of them, just in case. Along with all the FSEC meetings, we will be posting to make sure we don't have any open public meetings violation if one or more commissioners want to show up to all of those. With your Planning Commission, yeah, I heard good things about the Planning Commission meeting. I'm encouraged. They will work through this and come through with a recommendation to the board. We're also still working on trying to get a community survey sent out, which is proving to be a little more challenging because there's no community survey organizations on the state bid list. So now we're going to have to go out to an RFP or something, or an RFQ, to try to get a community survey done in some kind of a timely fashion in accordance with state law. So we are working on a lot of things on a lot of different angles, and just because you don't hear what's happening on a 1.5 hour meeting doesn't mean there's not a lot of things happening from each commissioner doing a lot of work on their own on non-Tuesday meetings. With that about wraps it all up. We're a good
Can
6
I-
minutes late. Sure.
Oh, to add one thing.
Go ahead.
Mr. Christopher said something very important, and that's proofing what you hear. There's so many conflicting stories and information out there. It's easy to get wound up and believe something that isn't true. And last night at Planning Commission, there was some testimony given in regard to tax dollars going to be brought into the county. I have proofed that information, and it was based off of supposition. There was information given to the person from our assessor's office, but it was based off of this year's assessments, and then the math put together by the person to create the amount that was told through Planning Commission that would be bringing in. That wasn't a true figure, and the state hasn't made the determination yet on how the assessor will come up with those numbers in truth, so we know how much it will be then.
Thank you, Ms. Zoller. Yeah, in these, I think in all of our, we're at that place in human nature where I often say that Facebook is going to be the downfall of the American society. Because people think that it's okay to get angry and mean and vindictive towards other people, and can be what I refer to as a keyboard cowboy on Facebook. And I think we've lost our compassion for other people, but I also think that Facebook is a place where people can start rumors and spread rumors, and then rumors spread, and it's never an accurate thing. And it's like playing the game of telephone when you were a kid and you were whispering in the other kid's ear, and it only takes 2 kids and the story's wrong. It's the same thing happening today, and unfortunately, I believe Facebook's going to be the cause of it. So it's why I've always said, if you have a question, reach out to a commissioner, get the facts before you go spreading what you think is the truth, because it's hard to get that back. Once you've released your gossip, it's hard to bring the gossip back into reality and not always be in fiction. And I think when a person has too much fiction, then they're no longer believed when there's actually fact involved, and that hurts their character, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, back to Facebook. Not a fan of local Facebook all the time lately. So anyway, we'll divert. We're way too long. We should end our public comment a little earlier and do our responses a little earlier from now on, but maybe we will. With that, we will move on. Thanks everybody for their citizen comments. Hopefully you got the answers to your questions. If you didn't, again, feel free to reach out to any of us by phone or email, and I know I can speak for myself. I would be happy to answer them. I'm sure my seatmates would as well. With that, we're moving on to requests for proposals. In openings, we have the purpose of identifying and selecting a qualified vendor with a proven track record to redesign, install, and support the network infrastructure. Do we have some kind of a staff update, any more than what I just said before you have us open bids? Okay. That's a lot. We're used to construction and there's like one.
Okay, we have a proposal for the IT managed service from provider Right Systems, Inc., Melissa Lambert. Thank you, sir. And there's no totals here.
So we don't have bid bonds or any of that, but do they have price totals in these that they're quoting estimates or anything like that? Or is this just here's our qualifications, call us
So
back to work out a
there's a
contract?
pricing proposal here.
There should be,
So in here, you've got, because it's mixed up, because you've got monthly reoccurring charges, total cost estimates, refresh of estimates, annual cost, 2% year over year. And the hardware is going to be different and everything. I don't see any value in saying what the
Reading all
total
the
is,
prices
because
out,
it's
I
going to
don't
look at completely different. So that is Right Systems, Inc., Melissa Lambert. Our next proposal is mighty fine question who it is. Everybody loves a.
You just don't slice your leg open with a box knife.
Hey, get me out of today's meeting. This is from Radcomp of White Salmon, Washington. Put that back. Next, we have. Spectrum Enterprises, which is, I think, from Charter. So Spectrum/Charter. And then we have one more.
Can't get that package back.
This is from
It might be the postal
Structured
receipt part of it, though.
Communications Systems out of Liberty Lake, Washington. And it is, I don't know if it's all one or if they made copies. It's the weirdest looking quote I've seen. And that is the four that we have. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to send these RFPs back to staff for their review and recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion to send them back to staff for review and recommendation. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send them back to staff and review and make a recommendation before the board. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Next before us is a public meeting to consider approval of short plat SPL 2022-16 for parcel numbers 01-13-100-0016/00 in the High Prairie vicinity. And we'll go with a staff update.
Okay, so this is a short plat for Marianne and Rezo Redinger. The proposal is to create two lots from parcel number 03131000001600. The proposed short plat is located within a portion of section 11, township 3, range 13 of the Willamette Meridian, Klickitat County, Washington, in the High Prairie vicinity. The administrative review of the short plat has been completed and signatures have been obtained from road, health, planning, treasurer's offices. All conditions attached to the primary approval have been met. If the board finds this is the public's interest to approve the short plat, a motion needs to be made granting the approval of short plat 202216.
Anybody have any comments or any issues with this or any questions or?
I do not.
Section 11, there we are.
You still looking?
There is nothing on either lot currently. Correct.
Correct.
Do we know how, it shows the road there, but do we know how the lot to the north is supposed to have access? Is it through this property?
And so the lot to the north is going to access on that 60-foot access and utility easement on the east side of the property.
Okay, so it goes right down in between them all.
It goes,
Got it. Yep. And that's to both of these lots and the one behind it.
yes.
Okay. That was my only question.
Okay,
Good.
I don't have any questions, so I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve short plat SPL 2022-16. The applicants being Mary Ann and Rezo Redlinger.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve SPL 2022-16. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of short plat SPL 2022-16, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Oh, there it is. What you need? Okay.
Hmm?
Your fancy
Yeah,
pen.
if it works. I think mine didn't work last time. I had to resort back to the Sharpie. Ooh, looks good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. That's up. Now we're doing, up next is the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda with all 7 items.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with all 7 items. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a
Aye.
third? Okay, we have a third. It's unanimous, consent agenda approved. Now we'll pay the bills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pay the bills with account payable warrants in the amount of $201,508.20 for the date ending April 17th, 2023.
I will second the motion.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? I looked through them earlier today and they all look fine to me and I am a go. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes to pay the bills. On to new business. Is there any new business for us to discuss today?
Nothing on the schedule.
Nothing for me.
If there were, I would have added it to the
Add
agenda.
it to the agenda ideally, if we'd have remembered. All right, 2 o'clock. We are 10 minutes ahead of time, but under unfinished business, we have a public hearing that's continued but closed to further public comment in accordance with RCW 36.70.795 and Resolution 00823 in regard to the moratorium on large-scale solar projects over 1 acre in size in township ranges as listed in Klickitat County. So this public hearing is still open. And we have staff. Do you have something for us? Or just here for our discussion? Here for our discussion.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here for your discussions, and I did include in your packet a proposed resolution for your review and consideration.
Did anybody have any questions over that resolution? I know we've been working on it for a few weeks and then submitted it to council, and now it's on our agenda.
Have we heard anything from council?
No.
And I spoke with him this morning, and he won't be commenting.
Okay.
So we sent all those questions over.
I think this is just the resolution.
Yeah,
I don't know about,
I don't know about the questions, but it was in regard, to the moratorium. He said that he verbalized his opinion in the beginning, and that still stands. The commissioners can do as they will. But his opinion of the moratorium was what he verbally told us in the first place.
What did he really tell you? When did that happen?
The very first time we talked about it, he was online and said how he felt about the moratoriums, what he thought about moratoriums.
I have to go back and watch the videos. I don't remember that, but I'll go back and watch the videos.
Was that?
And
was that
I do remember.
in private, or was that on the actual meeting?
It was during the meeting that there were conversations about that moratorium, is my recollection. It's been a while. But then there's also a specific way for requesting his opinion on the moratorium. And he did not feel that had came forward to him for specifically asking about the moratorium.
So when we wrote all of our requests, he said that didn't meet the asking for the legal opinion.
We didn't talk about the questions or your request. It was only specifically about the content of the moratorium that we talked about.
I will go back and watch all those videos.
And
See if I can find it anyway.
as a board, we can always make decisions. Doesn't mean he approves them of or disapproves of them. We have our elected latitude. If we make an error, we could get a spanking later, or in any situation, the board, the RCW in my mind does say he is our counsel, but at the end of that statement, it does say when requested. So it's up to the board to request and make our own decisions as adult elected officials on how we do business.
With that, we knew that he had verbalized that he did not want to have this document, but I wanted to submit this document just so that we can say we did. It did not get done, and that's fine, and we can still move forward and do whatever we want with it, having tried. I'm personally fine with the document. I don't know that it needs edited again, but if somebody thinks it does or has any further information.
I need to look at it.
Other than that, I would move that we accept the document.
If you can give me 1 second, I want to get it back up. My computer's cooperating now.
This is part of that process that citizen comment was complaining about. We haven't done anything. Yeah, the document was created, it was edited, it's working its way through the proper channels. And now it's back before us. So.
Give me a second to
Yep,
find
no, take your time.
the stack of paperwork in here.
If you click on that other tab over there.
Okay, gives me a list.
Yeah, it should give you
Okay,
a breakdown,
thank
so you might be
you.
able to find it easier.
Okay, yeah. There it is, easy, thank you.
Yep.
So did you make that in the form of a motion, the way you wrote, the way you were saying that?
No, I was just giving you my opinion. I didn't make a motion. If you want me to step down and make a motion, I will.
Oh, you said I would move.
Oh, did I? Yeah. Sorry. I can if you want me to make it official.
I guess what I would say is I sent some language over on this. Based on my concerns, it doesn't look like it was all incorporated, which that's okay. I would, again, state that I don't feel that the way this is written shows that the emergency exists. When we talk about periodic review and update of the county's plans, that is and should happen because we talk about process and the right way to do it. That doesn't constitute an emergency. And I don't see, and being that we've dealt with this exact same thing on a countywide basis 2 years ago, and in the end, we found that no emergency exists. For me to vote for it, I would need to see that there has been a change, either in state law, like when it came down to the marijuana moratorium, that was a change in state law that we had no zoning regulations or anything about. And that's one of the few times that I think a moratorium is actually important or pertinent. I have no problems with the board approving this moratorium, as again, I sadly feel that it will have no impact on the decision makers, but will only stop anyone from applying through the county process, which I would much rather see this going, any projects going through. So with that, you guys have known how I felt, and I put forward my findings of fact. But with that, I would.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I can sympathize and agree with some of your comments there. I don't know that this will have any bearing on the answer on if we get solar or don't get solar, but I do find it's my duty to do what I can. And that's what I'm doing. Whether the governor can just do whatever he wants, sure he can. But that's outside my wheelhouse and above my pay grade. So, you know, it just is what it is. Do I wish they would use local process and not FSEC process? Absolutely. Are they? No. Were they? No. So whether we did the moratorium or didn't do the moratorium, they still would have went through the FSEC process. The next one will go through the FSEC process. I know of one of them that may or may not, but they're so far down the road that they're just going to sit on the sidelines and wait and see how these play out. So not doing the moratorium, thinking that they're going to, they'll do the county process. They were not doing the county process. And I would imagine that if we're ever called to testify, and staff is ever going to get, called to testify in court, whether we knew they were going to FSEC or had high suspicions that they were going to FSEC, there would be a lot of testimony saying that they were going to FSEC. So this moratorium did not cause them to go to FSEC. And whether the moratorium works for this developer or the next developer, I think a moratorium is sound while you're reevaluating your land use to make sure that you don't get 12 applications dropped on you because, hey, they're going to redo their stuff. Let's get in before the deadline. Because then if they all drop their applications while you're spending 6 months going through the process, what if you change it? They're all done. There's only so much that's going to be here and they'll all drop their permits while we wait. So there was a reason for the moratorium and there was a reason that it is an emergency. So I will be voting in favor of it, and if you don't have any changes, I can step down and make the motion, or you can make the motion, I'll step down and second the motion, or however you want to go. Or do you have any comments?
I agree with Mr. Christopher's comments. And for me, it's just absolutely necessary that we back up and continue the planning process that should have started in 2018 to get ready for large-scale industrial solar. And this is the only way we're going to protect the rights of all the people of our county for every reason.
Try to anyway.
So I have no changes. I'm good.
So do you need a motion to approve the resolution, I'm assuming? Okay. And that's, is this a new resolution or is this 00823?
This is a new resolution.
Alrighty, I will step down and try to butcher this motion. I will step down as chairman and for the purpose of making a motion to approve the findings of fact that the Board of Commissioners non-unanimously found on Resolution 00823 with our solar moratorium. Adequate enough for resolution?
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
We discussed it ad nauseum.
Yes, we have. And I appreciate the discussion, though. With that, all those in favor of approving, yes, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Let the record show the ayes have it and 2-1 vote. Thank you, everyone involved.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
And for the record, I hope that FSEC has a change of heart and decides to honor our moratorium.
Oh, you missed one. It was you this time.
That's usually me that misses.
No, it isn't. Yeah, they may not. Either way, it doesn't.
Either way, I'm gonna be
Regardless of
glad to see what they do and how they write it.
Yeah.
Regardless to me of whatever FSEC's decision or whatever the governor says or does, I have to do, I feel I have to do what's in my people's best interest, and that's to try to protect them until we can, if we do so, make change. And then after that, those are the new rules, and whoever abides by the rules is good to go. But we don't know what the rules are, so.
I would
maybe.
just mention that
We miss another one?
we have landowners that have entered into financial agreements again. I didn't even see this one.
I didn't hear what Jake said.
That we're operating under a set of rules as well, and so they have rights as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Oh, you've got to sign that.
But I would also agree with Ms. Zoller that if this was addressed 5 years ago, we wouldn't have the problem today. It was addressed 2 years ago. We wouldn't have.
Oh.
Because even though we did find, at that time, the board found on a 2-1 vote that there was no emergency present, there was also an agreement to come up with what we need to do and the changes we need to make, and it never happened. If those changes were implemented then, we may not be in the predicament we're in now. So it's all hindsight and who knows, but we'll get through it one way or the other. With that, that's now behind us. Miscellaneous reports, comments. Staff have anything to keep us apprised of? I wanted to go look at our board pending list online and make sure we weren't forgetting something.
Did I forget one, another one?
Oh, it's a little lines.
Oh.
Oops, gives me the Barney package.
All right. Airport working on district court. Oh, by the way, I have not, since it's talking about allowing trucked potable water in our board pending, it's been that long. I did get another email or a message from the citizens asking when we're ever going to get around to that. I did admit that it's my bad that we're not around to that. That I took this on, and with WASAC, I've just been, with the lead steering committee, I've just been too busy. Apologized to him and told him that after lead steering is over, I will get to work on it, which is now. So hopefully soon you will see me start working on truck potable water.
I guess one concern I have is I don't like voting on moratoriums or things like that without having actual legal advice from council. I know that there's likely some hard feelings over the way the moratorium was enacted in the first place, without asking for legal counsel and advice ahead of time. I would like to try to head that off in the future, so that we have all of the legal analysis and advice from prosecuting attorney's office that we can get.
I
And
don't disagree. Hindsight, I wish that I would have at least went to him and asked him privately in his office his opinion. I don't know that I would have wanted it to be a formal opinion, something the public can get aware of, because again, the reason I did it on that first week was because I believe I was preempting and trying to get it in before the solar company dropped their permit to FSEC. If we would have did it like Benton County did, where it had a legal question, it had a public hearing on 1 week and acted their moratorium the next week, the solar companies knew it was coming, so they dropped the permit the day before the moratorium hit. I did not want the solar companies finding out that this was coming. Otherwise, yeah, they just drop the permit, and then what good is the moratorium? I have a moratorium, it doesn't work after the fact. Well, some people are saying it doesn't work after the fact or before the fact. But so I guess technically I was worried about it getting back to the solar companies, that it was happening, and maybe that should have been a discussion with the prosecutor. But I guess I looked at in not having discussions with the prosecutor, I don't know. And this moratorium was somehow okay when it covered half of the Goldendale Valley last time 2 years ago. And now that it covers more area, it may or may not be okay. I guess I don't understand that. But again, maybe that should have been a conversation, and that a closer working relationship with the prosecutor is a good thing, and I'm more than willing. But it's a two-way street.
so I guess the goal being to not get into this situation in the future. I think it would be good if, we were asked, what are our questions? What are our concerns for a PA opinion request? I spent time putting those questions together, sending them over, and it sounds like those weren't in a form that the PA is acceptable to. So I need to know for the future, what is the proper way to ask for not just a PA opinion request, but actual legal counsel with regards to potential or.
And I'd like to ask that we entertain having the prosecutor come in and sit down with all three of us and figure out how to formalize our relationship with him, what he needs from us, how to work with him, and then really stick to that process as a board. Discuss things, come to a resolve, and then we send in a request on his request form maybe to him if that's what he's looking for. But really formalize what he needs from us and then follow that every time. So I agree basically with you, but I think we need to ask him, what does he need to hear from us? Respect his opinion, and then how do we engage with him to get that?
Well, I'm glad you had a conversation with him this morning. I completely understand. We get put on the spot every Tuesday, and you're expected to respond with, 30 seconds of forethought into community, and it's never fun. Somebody's always half the time trying to get you in a gotcha moment, and I totally respect the PA wanting to have the time, as well as the ability to do research and get back to us rather than just spouting off the first thought that comes to mind. So I completely understand where the PA is coming from.
Yeah, and he has, we need to respect his position as our elected prosecutor too. That's not a great job. I would never want that position or work in that office. And that's a very, very busy office. It gets busier all the time. And I think we're in a season as commissioners too, where we have a lot of fires burning. And it seems like everybody goes to litigation now. So a working relationship with him is going to be very crucial going forward.
I don't disagree. But
You can't say but.
I-
That takes it back.
I've reached out, I've sent questions, I've sent emails. I was out of town, he's gonna get back and call me, no response, no emails, no return phone calls, no.
Well, it's time for a new start. Let's do a new start. A
That would-
reset.
That would be nice.
Let's do a
I mean,
reset.
we can move forward without, we don't have to like each other to do our jobs and work together. I mean, it happens, I mean, I guess we have to do that more because there's 3 individual opinions. And, 5 minutes, Jake might get his feelings hurt because we voted against him on this issue. And 5 minutes later, you get your feelings hurt because we voted a different way. And 5 minutes later, I'm the one that gets my feelings hurt. We're more flexible, I guess, because of that, and you have to learn to work with that different personality. And I am always said that I am more than willing. I just have to be able to get answers to questions.
And
And if I don't, I have to just wing it and hope we don't get sued.
And get your feelings hurt and the emotional side of it. You have to, I believe, look at the prosecutor too for who he is. He's a legal person. So take the emotion out of it. He works just with legal. And if we can formulate your opinion, my opinion, Jake's opinion, and put it on one page for him, even if we have the 3 varying, so that he can digest it and not get bombarded or sideswiped with an email here, an email there, walk in his office and talk to him over here. I think we need to formalize that relationship and give him that respect and space where we put everything on one page. The prosecutor, he has a, what do they call that, Lee? He has a form. Yeah, he has a PA opinion request form. We can every time put everything we need to put on there and each agree that our position's on there
Is
and
that
send
what you
that to him.
did with our individual questions, was send them over with an opinion request?
And
So, and in the same regard, in following that policy, I would like the county commissioners to have a policy that they get answered via written and not personal, because
That's his process.
that's, well, I'm saying in how he answers, because technically he could make a phone call and answer and I still never get the answer. If the answer's in right, if it's in writing, at least I'd get the answer. But we can make a policy and it doesn't mean other people have to follow it.
Would you like my switch? We can ask though for that policy too and say, we have our needs and.
But it sounds, it's the way you made it sound, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, is that, or his, is that we didn't ask the questions in the right way or the right format.
But this could easily be that little kid's game of telephone.
That's why I'm
Happening
asking.
as
Is
well.
that what you
I
were
think
saying?
it was an evolving
Which is the
situation
problem.
over the whole time of this moratorium situation. And I can't answer for every reason why. I didn't ask him all of those things. I had sent over a PA request form and he called me and said, I can't answer on the moratorium things. I feel like I made that answer clear in the beginning. And the board's more than willing or more than can go ahead with what they're going to do, but I can't answer this. And he did reach out because he was going out of town for the entire week. And I think being legal, there's sometimes he has to be careful too, what he does write and not write.
Did you ask or talk at all about the request from us?
I did
about-
not.
Okay.
I did not. Because I don't think I'd seen those requests. I don't,
About hiring outside legal counsel? Is that the one?
We never got that one actually officially. We just
No, we
talked to
didn't
that about
discuss
that one,
that.
and by the end of the day, he had already called Lee and said, no, there was never an
Oh,
official.
okay.
But after that,
and he and I
in
did not
terms of our
discuss that.
questions, I had a list of 10 or so questions I had needed to ask about different things. So when you ended up having questions, I forwarded mine to Lee, and then she apparently hodgepodged everything and sent it over to him on one of his forms, or attached to one of his forms. But that was, I want to say, a couple weeks ago.
And I don't know if he would be, want to do something like this, but for me, a lot of times, we have a lot of legal questions. Maybe first thing Tuesday mornings, if we had prosecutor time. I don't know if he can commit to that or has the time. If we had a half hour every Tuesday and we all had our
I
questions,
would absolutely love that, but
we can try.
I think that question needs to be asked in private and not in public, because I think this kind of puts him on the spot, and I don't think he wants to be put on the spot.
Nobody likes to be put on the spot.
I get it. But the prosecutor also doesn't like Zoom, which is the reason I believe he's not partaking. We could have executive if it is about pending litigation, but any of that is not pending. So it might be speculative on whether something you do might be used as litigation. So I mean, maybe it can be an executive and he would be game. I'm more than happy to see him every week for whatever he would give us.
Well, if we could just approach him with our best intentions that we do need him and have him help us define a way
So my
that will
emails
work
have
for
been
him.
essentially begging and pleading. So if either of you got ideas, I'm more than game.
And I always like to think of us as a board, and so I like to ask things before I go out of this room and go do them, or just take it upon myself. But would either of you have a problem if, when he's back, I try to take the time and just sit down with him and say, what can we do?
I would recommend you take all the time you can to sit down and learn from him. And in my perspective, you never need to ask to go talk to him.
No, and he's told me that. And I don't want to have a visit with him about back and forth. I want to visit with resolve, what is going to work for him. So in the future, we have a standard pat working relationship that we stay within those boundaries and we move forward.
Again, I think it starts out with, before we do something major, we should definitely ask before we pass something.
Right, but that was one item. It was not much different than the same item that happened 2 years ago. There was a reason it wasn't asked for, and that wasn't because of questions on a legal opinion. Because it was already done before, I didn't really feel it needed to go for another legal opinion. And I didn't want it to get back to the solar companies. Not that he would have released it, but if it's common knowledge that it's gonna happen, they got fingers inside this building. So, and I don't picture that scenario happening again. So if this whole working relationship problem is that, I don't know how to fix it. Like I said, I've apologized in hindsight. I should have went and had a meeting with him and said, hey, look this over and let me tell you, what do you think? Technically, at any time afterwards, he has the ability to say, well, your township and ranges ain't big enough. You need to make it the whole county, or you need to make it this. And we could have adapted it and changed it a week later.
So
I don't know.
The problem
I haven't
is,
had any conversation, not one, none at all. Didn't know anything.
the problem is that after we do something, I don't think he's going to say, well, you could have or should have done this. that's not, I don't believe, the PA's role to say that. I mean, I try to very much, I try to respect other elected sandboxes. And if we are the policy makers, but I think while being the policy maker, we need to make those decisions knowing the liability and potential for legal consequences. And that needs to go before you make the decision, because once you make the decision, it's a little too late. And that's, I think that's just that's a form of respect, and respecting the position. So I'll leave it at that. But let's hope that in the future, everything goes swimmingly.
Okay, any other board pending? That was fun.
Oh, did I ever get the polling group from?
No.
I'm gonna send that email right now.
No, my plan is today, and I'll be back in the office tomorrow because I got a few meetings, is to reach out to some of those community survey groups and kind of just get a basic idea on pricing. Because it sounds like anything over $5,000, we gotta go to RFP. So it'd be nice to at least get some ideas on who's available, what the ballpark pricing is, so I can give you guys some kind of an idea to move forward on that, because the state does not have any community survey people on their small works roster. So
Really?
there's no easy way. Well, according to Miss Lee, she looked and there wasn't anybody.
Interesting.
Words, and I couldn't come up with anybody that did something for community relations, community.
Surveys.
Solar.
Well, it'll probably be more than that, so I don't.
Things like that popped up.
Because that would have been the easy way. Now we're gonna have to put out an RFP and just kind of like this, wait for people to submit proposals, and
Well,
it's
that
gonna
kind
be a
of ruins the
form.
time.
Yeah, that's kind of me. It's now we're spending 2 months chasing our tails before we can even start working on questions for a survey.
I asked the hospital and they used somebody in Seattle to do theirs, so.
But see, that might be the answer, is we just reach out to a few of them and say, hey, this is what we're kind of looking at. And that was what I was gonna do tomorrow. You know, give me some kind of a price range. I can't imagine it's under 5,000, but maybe it is. And we can just call one and bring them in and fill it out and be done with it.
Countywide, you want to send somebody, because we've done that in a party when I was the treasurer. It was about $5,000. There was an outfit in white salmon.
Is that a direct mailer to everybody, or was that an actual survey?
Now, this was just a direct mail.
Direct mailer.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is
About $5,000 to get the whole.
Just the mailer by
the
itself.
registered voters, I'm assuming, is what you do?
It goes by zip codes.
So we're gonna do it, the thought is Goldendale, Centerville Valley. So the addresses that are in, let's call it Pine Forest District, Woodland District, Goldendale 1, 2, 3, Centerville. So yeah, you can just take the voter districts there. And then whether we send them to each individual, like by voting and it's husband and wife, or whether it's just one per the household. We haven't discussed that yet. Because then just kind of go into each household and not just to registered voters. And then whether you just send the survey, and some of them send out a mailer a week beforehand that says, hey, you're gonna get a survey next week. And then they get the survey. And then a week later, it's, hey, you got a survey, fill it out and send it in. So they end up sending 3 mailers. Do you send 3 mailers, or you just send one and hope people turn it in? And we're not only probably going to, we've already discussed doing this with the community survey for our planning, strategic planning. So I'm feeling we'll probably use this community survey more than just on this topic. not necessarily lumping all of our questions on one thing, a couple of different mailers over the next year or so to get community input on long-range planning and whatnot. So anyway, that's what that talks about. So I will make a few phone calls tomorrow and see if I can get at least some kind of idea. If not, we're probably gonna have to write up an RFP and bring it before the board to go out and get some proposals and see what's out there.
Anything else?
No.
With that, Mr. Chairman, it is my great pleasure to make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting to 9:15 on Thursday, April 22nd, 2023 for a scheduled workshop. And I'm going to change that to recess the meeting until 9:15 on Thursday, April 22nd for the scheduled workshop. While noting the public is welcome to attend the workshops, but they are not recorded and Zoom is not available.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay.
In the discussion, I would mention that the Board of Commissioners will be attending the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport Board of Directors meeting as observers on Friday, April 21st, 2023 at 7:30. Up to potentially some of.
Okay, we're gonna get a very amended motion because I would also be mentioning that Thursday morning, the Klickitat County Commissioners will be on the radio at 8 o'clock. So there's like 3 amendments to that motion that we're
Okay.
turning now.
Is that good enough for you, Alicia, or would you like?
About
me to
as
start
messy
over?
as it gets, but
Survey for the Parks and Rec of White Summit.
as I say, everybody does them. Surveys are
You
used
can call
everywhere.
Parks and Rec.
Would you like me
It's
to
just a
restate the
matter of-
motion?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
You need
Okay,
to
we're in
restate.
discussion, and then actually, before you in discussion, yes, so technically you probably look at the survey and see who created it.
Yeah.
And then I would just be calling those people.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And
thinking.
that's what I Googled it and saw what other cities and counties. Yeah, I can't recess yet, otherwise I can't have this conversation with
Sorry.
you.
Follow the discussion on
So then I'm
adjournment.
gonna figure out who did each one of these and then call them and get an idea on what they.
Call Liz, that number.
Interesting.
You can find out who did it for
I
them.
said I have a whole bunch of them because I was looking at it when I was up in Wausau.
And their partner is the Mount Adams Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. I think they'd be a great resource for
So
you.
they would be able to, I can't imagine the or the Goldendale Chamber hasn't done a community survey on something. There's gotta be some
Ask
numbers
them,
out
they
there
said
from
no.
people that have done the hospital. I mean, so.
Ask Mount Adams Chamber.
Said I'll call around and then I'll call a few of the survey people just to get a kind of a basic ballpark idea on price. But if we can't find them on a small works contract somewhere roster, we're gonna end up having to write an RFP. So odds are we'll probably start working on that and hope to get it done in the next week or two. With that, any other discussion before we adjourn? Kind of want to feel like leaving it open for the next hour. We can just sit here and chat about different things. Conversation's usually good, but we won't. All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. Thank you, everyone.